Overall, though, I think where we got to start is just the Fran Brown magic. I think that's just kind of what took us to where we needed to go last year. It was kind of incredible watching Syracuse have a major turnaround under a first-year head coach.
100%. I mean, the franchise is here.
You're watching Domed in Cuse, the quick hit podcast for real Orange fans. If you love Cuse sports, hit like and subscribe. Let's go Orange.
So Syracuse in 2024, how'd we do? Syracuse went 10-2, 10-3. Fuck, 10-3.
10-3.
Yeah, 10-3 with a bowl win, DirecTV Holiday Bowl, great time. A lot of close games. That's definitely something that we saw last year. You see the one-score games against Georgia Tech, Stanford, UNLV, NC State, Virginia Tech, Boston College, UConn, Miami, lots of one-score games. I think the other thing you see is when you look at kind of the guys who led the team, obviously McCord had a great passing year, stole him from Ohio State. Big numbers he put up. He's gone. Every single rush game, you just see our boy here, LeQuint, who had an amazing season, amazing career, also gone. Good luck in the NFL. Then even when you scroll over here to some of the receivers, you got Gadsden, Pena, who's out there at Penn State, took a big check to leave. Meeks, the dog, who's gone, unfortunately. You have Ross and Ross Simmons, who are still around. So you got a couple of guys who did something last year, and then Gill, who's still here as well. So he had two big games. Overall, though, I think where we got to start is just the Fran Brown magic. I think that's just kind of what took us to where we needed to go last year. It was kind of incredible watching Syracuse have a major turnaround under a first-year head coach.
100%. I mean, the franchise is here, right? Like, I don't think anybody's seen Central New York this excited about a football team in 20-plus years. I mean, he reinvigorated the entire region on the game of football, quite frankly. But yeah, I mean, look, it was a great season. They played a lot of competitive, close games and, frankly, benefited from elite quarterback play in a lot of those games. There's going to be a lot to replace coming into 25, but I mean, A+ year in the first year under Fran Brown. And I think Cuse fans, we had a lot to be excited about, even though we are replacing a lot here. As you can see, leading rusher, obviously you've got an NFL draft pick in McCord, but there are going to be some playmakers coming back who we'll get to here, I'm sure, shortly. But yeah, it is tough to look at these numbers here and see what is being replaced.
I mean, if we go ahead and dive into some other numbers that we have here, the one thing that I like to look at from last season for me, Tab, is, you know, when you look at the performance that we had, look at that home record.
I mean, that's just what you need to do. In college football, if you want to win games, you've got to win games at home.
6-1 at home. Unbelievable.
Yeah. I mean, taking care of business at home. And even the one, I mean, that one Stanford loss, you know, really maybe cost them a chance at the playoff. But without that gaffe on Friday night, you know, that's a perfect season at home, which it doesn't happen all that often. You know?
And, you know, we hated that Friday night game. That game being on Friday night is absolute bullshit, because that puts you in, at Syracuse, you're not getting the advantage of getting that West Coast team coming, playing at noon, which feels like 9 o'clock to them.
I mean,
you know, that needed to be a noon Saturday game for us.
Look at the amount of time that went by between basically Syracuse playing a D1 opponent at home last year. I mean, it was 2 months, like on a Saturday. Look, it's, you know, Georgia Tech on the 7th of September, and then we didn't play at home against another D1 team until Virginia Tech. We were in the building for that game.
You know, another one that I like to see is last year, there was a lot of talk about our record wasn't good, or not our record wasn't good, but we weren't playing tough teams. But I do want to point out that we were 6-2 versus teams that had winning records. That's impressive. You know, we weren't playing slouches. Maybe we weren't playing the top teams in the country, but all the teams that Syracuse played last year were solid opponents.
We had played a lot of very solid teams, and they played their best against the best teams on their schedule. I mean, they're 2-0 against ranked teams. At Pitt is a tough game, no matter who you're playing, but I mean, they took care of business against a very tough Georgia Tech team. There are some very good wins from this team this year, and I think just a lot to build on heading into year 2.
A lot to build on. I mean, that's the exciting thing, right? Is I do feel like last year we kind of caught some people by surprise. People are down on us this year. You know, if you look at some expectations across, a lot of people have us going 6-6 at best, and that's kind of a slap in the face to Fran Brown and the rest of us here who know that Fran's going to be able to turn this team around. And you know, we saw a few guys that had some games last year for us that were helpful. You know, you look at Gill. He was great at times. You look at guys like Yazin Willis, who we know is a guy that we're expecting big things from. But you also look on the defensive side of the ball, bringing back Deuce, bringing back Grant, bringing back a load of players all across defensive line from secondary. The only real question that we have on the defense is the linebacker spot. But we'll see. Overall, I think that Syracuse, took a step last year, and we'll see if they can continue to take another step under Fran this year.
Totally. I think defense is going to be a big question mark this year. We want to see improvement, and I think we've added a lot of size on the defensive line, which was a weakness we knew going into last year, particularly when we had guys go down. Big Tank, healthy and back as a fifth-year player is big. We're bringing in Chris Thomas, massive man on the defensive line here to play nose tackle for us. I think we've got really an encouraging group here, and we bring in Reese, another 7th, 8th year guy from Cal who's been productive the last couple of years in the ACC. I mean, there's a stable of guys, even losing Watson late in the process here. Cuse is going to be fine. You bring in Rooks, who's a productive ACC defensive tackle. There's a rotation here that just frankly was not here last year, was not here 2 years ago when we're playing Kevon Darton at 5'9", 5'10", 250 pounds, a defensive tackle.
With no backup. At least this year we have guys. That's I think the key is the depth across the defensive line. Look at some of those other programs in the best programs in the country. Your Georgias, your Ohio States, your Texases. They have a lot of bodies they can put out on that defensive line.
Totally. And Cuse we have not had that depth. It's just been a very long time since we've had size and depth up front. And that's what Fran is building. And I honestly think, we look back at these results from last year, we could not run the ball for long stretches of this season, and you have to think that the offensive line play is going to improve on that end of things. And I think clearly they benefited from having an experienced quarterback back there last year, got the ball out quick, was very comfortable in an offense. This year, I think we're going to see a change in scheme slightly. We're not going to be quite as vertical getting down the field, but I think we're going to have an ability, hopefully, to run the ball and pound the rock. Not only did we bring in all those defensive linemen, there's a stable of new offensive linemen that are fighting for, frankly, snaps, and from big-time programs here that we're bringing in guys from. And it's just, I think there's going to be a massive leap in the trenches, despite losing a lot of talent on the outside and in the skill positions.
And Willis, for me, is a guy that I'm really key on. I think he's going to be big for us. He's a all-American kid from New Jersey or whatever, all-American type talent from New Jersey. That's the kind of guy Fran went out and got early in his tenure to kind of, bump up some of the atmosphere and the juice around the program last year, which was sorely needed after the Dino era, because the Dino era kind of ended in a little bit of a sad way. And it ended kind of with not a lot of juice. And Fran just immediately brought that juice and immediately brought that energy that, kind of sustained us last year. And this year it's been maybe a little more quiet, but at times I'm like, maybe it's not been as quiet as it was last year, or maybe just we're expecting it this year.
Yeah. I think there's expectations to the program this year, but I also think it's a matter of just kind of how we all are now. We're a little bit we're ready for it now. We lived the Fran Brown experience last year. I mean, we will get to it here shortly, but our offseason is filled with victories. I mean, look, we're going to lose guys in the portal. That happens, but we're bringing in a quarterback from Notre Dame. We're bringing in a 5-star wide receiver.
Another quarterback from LSU.
The number of transfers we just talked about here. I mean, there's a lot to be excited about around Cuse football, even in what is sort of a rebuild year. I mean, I don't know that we'll ever have a true rebuild under Fran, but it's a slightly retooling year. We did lose a lot of experience. That said, I think there's just a lot. There's a lot on this roster.